Welcome everyone to our final session of the day. This is the 10th Process Innovation Challenge, and we've reached our final round. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
Alex, very well. It's our number 10. We've been doing this a while now. We've been to far-flung places like Barcelona, Tokyo, Silicon Valley, Seattle, Warsaw, Portugal. We're now in everybody's living room, kitchen, or den. Let's have a close look, shall we? See what we can see. But very welcome, everyone. Great to be here. You know, we have a great variety of innovations this year, almost as always. And we had a preliminary round a few weeks back. You can check out those videos, in fact, on the LockWorld YouTube channel. So hopefully you will know what the PIC is about. If not, well, you're going to catch on fairly quickly. Let's look at some of the changes that we've been making to it this year. In fact, for this version, number 10. You know, first off, we have 5 innovators in the final. This will give innovators more time for questions from the dragons and hopefully conversations. We brought in the investor viewpoint once more. Thanks to Jochen Hummel for joining us. And Alex, a few more things, right?
Yeah, we also introduced an advisory board this time for the PIC, and this is a group of former Dragons and also LockWorld members, but they're going to help us to continue to drive and develop and innovate with the platform. We also introduced a new series of fireside chats last fall, and we plan to host these again later in the year, where we bring back some former PIC winners and other innovators, people who have been involved before. The whole goal being to, again, enhance this platform for innovation even further. Next year, our goal is also to add an alumni group that will further support folks who have submitted and connecting the innovators from the PIC with potential investors and companies that might be interested in their innovations. Dave, you're muted right now.
Well, we have to have one gremlin in the PIC, you know. Let's hope that's it. And I had a conversation with someone earlier this morning, and we were wondering if someone has statistics on how much time has been wasted by people saying, hey, you're muted at Zoom calls. If anyone has any links, send them by. But certainly I've been cut out this time. Our dragons today are Yuka Nakasone from Global Bridge, Jim Compton from RWS Moravia, and Jochen Hummel, CEO at Corian and ES Team. They'll be asking the hard and maybe not so hard questions. Welcome, dragons.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thanks. Thank you.
Great to have you here. I'm Dave Rowan, and my co-host is Alex Burnett, of course. Alex, once more onto the bridge we go.
Let's do it.
Well, we had a lot of really high quality entries this year. From the preliminaries, 5 have made it to the final. Isn't that right, Alex?
Yes, correct.
And we're proudly sponsored by LockWorld and XTM International. You know, sometimes we have to think about innovation and wonder, look at ourselves in the mirror and think, are you prepared, you know, for people telling that you're nuts? Of course, at the PIC, we always say innovations can really come from anywhere. And we will do a shout out just to let you know that if you have an innovation, you can find us in the Solutions Square. Just send us a message at the PIC booth and we'll be in touch. Right, Alex?
Yes, we will.
And we're very glad to say that Multilingual Magazine are once again offering a prize for the Process Innovator of the Year, which will be a one-page white paper in one of their fall issues. And thank you to Mario Line and the team at Multilingual for yet again supporting us here. Let's meet our innovators, shall we? We have Mayu, Rickert, Konstantin, Anouk, and Rafal. Good to see some new names and a few folks very familiar to the PIC. Welcome, everybody, and good luck. All right, as Willy Wonka once said, overjoyed, enraptured, entranced. Are we ready? Yes, good. Let the PIC begin. So first on stage is someone who's new to the PIC, Mayu Nurmainen. Mayu, you're very welcome to the PIC stage.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's great to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Mayu, and I look after localization at What3Words. I'd like to start with a simple question. Which button would you rather click on a website? There's not much of a difference. This is an iterative change, a data protection company made in the microcopy on their website. And they discovered that replacing quote with pricing increased clicks by over 160%. UX writing and localization have something in common, and that is the importance of understanding your audience. We know from cognitive psychology that cultural identity and background heavily influence our cognitive processes, including perception and decision making. And our localization approaches have evolved a lot to better respond to the need to tailor content and experiences for different audiences and cultures. Interestingly, all these approaches are linear processes with a start point and an end point, even in continuous localization, where the work is just completed in smaller chunks at a time. In a way, localization is always a step in the process which we complete. So based on the number we saw on the previous slide of 160% increase with a very small change, it feels we may be missing massive opportunities in our key languages. So building on the development that has taken place so far, I'm proposing a fourth methodology, which I call iterative localization. As you can tell by the name and the icon below it, this approach doesn't complete localization, but rather keeps optimizing the localized experience. This framework is based on the work we have done at What3Words, initially on our App Store pages, but over the past 18 months, the use case has expanded to other user acquisition projects as well, such as digital advertising. The basic process looks like this. You may recognize this from Agile. It is quite self-explanatory. You plan and prioritize what needs to be worked on, whether that's messaging or for example, design localization, produce and implement that localized component for testing, and use the data to iterate further. It's obvious that this isn't a process for only a localization team. At What3Words, we formed a cross-functional team to optimize the App Store experience. Now, getting the initial buy-in can feel like a hurdle. We all know localization can be a hard sell at times. In our case, the App Store was the perfect place for proof of concept because it provided a very low risk opportunity. It was a familiar platform, free, and we were able to control the audience size in our experiments. Here's an example of a tailored experience we have produced. Next slide, please. A fully localized Google Play page for Japan. In this version, users resonated particularly with the opening message about our leading position in over 40 countries. What you see here wasn't just transcreation or good translation. It was a layer above these. It was iterative and it was holistic. Now, large multinational enterprises can deliver this type of results through global culture focus groups and large investments in country. For a company of our size with limited resources, a framework for delivering significant cumulative growth through lean localization has been really groundbreaking. We have brought our cost per install down by around 50% across our key markets and significantly boosted our app downloads. I'm sure we're not alone, and there are others out there who could use this, and this is why I wanted to share this idea in the PIC. Small changes over time, sometimes just one word, can make the biggest difference. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mayu. Yeah. Dragons, questions?
I have a question. When in the first round, you called it impact localization. And actually, I like that better. I found this more powerful than the more descriptive iterative. And it also leads me to my question. I think the key part and the most difficult part in this circle you have shown is the testing. So how do you test and measure the impact of localization?
Yeah, the name change indeed went through some iteration, and I feel like I'm still not quite happy with it. So we'll see what it ends up being called.
Consider to go back. Impact was quite powerful. I like that one.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is certainly, that's an important point that you make. This is certainly one that you should be applying on platforms, on content where you can measure the impact. So for example, Google Play Store, which I mentioned earlier, has their own kind of a back-end tool for organizations to use to kind of track activity and measure, track experiments and measure how different different types of listings are performing. But there are obviously loads of similar platforms, whether you're talking about Facebook ads or what have you. So you don't necessarily need like separate tools or processes to measure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay.
Are you? I see that your new positioning seems to have kind of a user experience focus, right, in terms of the outcome of the process. But then your approach is this agile, iterative approach, and I wanted to ask about that specifically. On the surface, this idea of iterative release of content would seem to be in conflict with localization's tradition, let's say, of serial localization projects. How are you able to achieve this agile, rapid deployment of like, new permutations of localized content in reality?
It has been a process, and certainly it was a very copy-focused initiative, and started as simple transcreation, if that's ever simple, and as we were able to use the app stores as the proof of concept, and the idea and the approach kind of took on, and localization became cross-functional by definition, at what 3 words. Since then, all of these these design localization things that you see, they've kind of been absorbed into the normal activities of, for example, our marketing team or UXD team. That they would do anyway for that market. It's just that we needed that buy-in and that proof of concept that actually this type of effort is something we should be focusing on.
Okay.
And I can ask something to follow up. If you have to do iterative process and you have several markets, how many markets do you have for this, for example?
Well, our product exists in 48 languages, but obviously we, just like any business, we have our priority languages. The number of languages we prioritize depends on the platform. In the App Store, it is less than 5. It is a couple languages, but for example, in digital advertising, it's in the 5 to 10 range.
Wow, but it's still like 5 to 10. You have to engage translator or local professional to iterate the content, right? So it's a complicated process, seems.
It might sound like it, but it really isn't. I think one of the strengths of this process is that, or this approach, is that it leverages processes that already exist in businesses. And for example, if you're talking about value proposition design, this is something that product marketing teams do already. So depending on what it is, what the component is that we need to optimize next, it may or may not be the translator who needs to be engaged. But the briefing process and the kind of the workflow wouldn't be any more complicated than a normal, let's say, transcreation process.
Lovely.
Is there any...
Sorry, Yuka, I have to cut you. Just like iterative process, we have to move on. Thank you, Mayu. Great start. And you showed us how process can impact and got us thinking iteratively. So thank you very much.
Thank
All right,
you.
next up is Riekert, previous winner of the PIC. Riekert, when you're ready, over to you.
Thank you. The next, please. I am very pleased to present for the second time at the Process Innovation Challenge. In 2018, we won with our connector offering. Our connectors help marketeers get content translated faster and easier. Lockup Insights continues on the journey and gives insights how to improve the conversion and UX of localized content. Next. The technical innovation we present today provide insights to improve global SEO and website user experience. Localization of websites does not stop at the CMS. The website is the final destination. Next. The real innovation, though, is that Lockup gives localization people the tools to talk tangible business value to marketeers. In our years of experience doing migrations for marketeers and implementing connectors to the localization industry, we can only conclude that the worlds are drifting only further apart. Next. Next, please. And next, please, the same. They don't speak the same language. Oh, sorry, if you can go back. Yeah. So they don't speak the same language. Mars talks about linguistic quality, and all Venus hears is blah, blah, blah. High cost and further slowing down of the process. We all know that localization is a business driver, and we all want to prove the ROI of this. But in my humble opinion, we never got beyond linguistic quality, which is not convincing enough for the average marketeer. The innovation I'm about to present quantifies user experience and lead generation in the localized website. Both very, if not most, important parameters for the marketeers. Next. So let's get into it. See here an example of the proud leader of the localization industry advertising in perfectly translated French and English how to translate intelligently. Next. After crawling hundreds of websites and thousands of pages, we have grouped them into 7 sins that kill your SEO and user experience, no matter how good it appears in your CMS. Welcome, Lockup Insights. Lockup Insights is a SaaS solution that crawls your website and identifies these 7 sins. The score on the 7 sins determines your localization effectiveness score. In this case, they score around 70 points, which means there's lots of low-hanging fruit to get to 90 and above. Drilling down into the score and giving you tangible steps how to fix it. Sin 1 is probably the biggest SEO sin there is, translating a page in German, as you can see here, but to Google it is still in English. It's a perfect translation, but to be found by nobody. And how about this American flag in the top? Am I not on a German page? The second sin is the biggest UX killer, mixing 2 languages on the same page. Here we see a Danish URL with clearly a lot of English text. So the good news is that the language sign is correct this time, but the content clearly is not. Does this give you the confidence to buy their products? Linguistic quality is a clear value, but also considered a sine qua non. Better local experience and more local leads equals true business value. We should talk about these values to other departments or management. With this, we can make our value visible and even higher. Let's show the power of localization. With this, you can do this. Thank you.
Awesome.
Many thanks, Rikert. We've got to meet some unfriendly search engines. Surely none of them are Irish, right? And how many of us are guilty of those 7 sins? Dragons?
Rikert, I'd actually like to maybe challenge you on a core assertion of your presentation, right? You're talking about localization effectiveness. And I would say, for me, that would be defined as if content is fit for purpose against some kind of global business objective. So my question is, do you have the data that would correlate these 7 deadly localization sins to localization effectiveness, or should you maybe be calling this something like SEO issue flagging?
It's actually both. So the tool that I showed you right now is SEO issue flagging and user experience issue flagging. So that is the first element. But we do allow an integration with Google Analytics, and we do allow integration with your own performance management system, so that we can actually put a number value on it as well.
Thank you.
A quick question: with the software as a service solution, how does the pricing scale? Is it per site, per errors detected, per users, or what is your pricing model?
So we have a free version, which is available for both LSPs as end clients, where we can crawl any website and we show the results that I just showed you right now. We just limit the errors to 5 errors. Then we have a paid version, which is €500 for the first 10,000 pages, and then it gradually continues.
So the price scales per page are crawled, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a maximum to it, but roughly like 80% of the websites will go at €500 per month.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you about the pricing, but I already asked. So there's one question from the audience saying that Raj is saying, your tool looks interesting, Rika. Did you mean that the tool automatically detects these 7 sins? Is it automatic?
Correct. All you need to do is enter a URL on our website, and we will provide you the score on the 7 sins, and we will provide you with improvement areas to improve your SEO and to improve the user experience.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may have one more question, Rickert, there was I think a slide that was saying that the goal is to help or how localization professionals can help marketers improve their global UX SEO. I'm trying to connect the dots between this technology and how localization professionals can be helping the marketers.
Yeah, so this is an excellent question. So if you take the technical innovation that we do it manually, or that we do it in an automated fashion, what should have been done manually in the first place. Now, but the real problem is that none of the SEO tools and none of the localization managers and none of the marketing managers actually pay attention to the fact what happens between the CMS and the actual publication. And so that is where we step in, and the fact that it doesn't happen kind of shows the disconnect between the marketing and localization. And I think that this insight into improving SEO and this insight into improving the user experience, the real added value that it can provide for localization people is that they suddenly bring innovation and added value to the marketeers in their organization, because their current SEO tools do not flag this, and their current IT systems do not flag this either, because otherwise these issues would have never appeared.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Jim, for that, and the audience as well. And Rickert, thank you. I see there's another question on the chat, so Rickert, maybe you check that out and answer that in the chat, if you would. That'd be great. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Rickert.
Yeah. So next up is another regular at the PIC, and we always like to see him back, Konstantin Savenkov from Intento. Welcome, Konstantin.
Thanks. Yep. So let's go ahead.
And I'll start your time whenever you are set to go.
Yeah. So my name is Konstantin Savenkov. I'm CEO and co-founder of Intento. Slide, please. So at Intento, we build tools to unlock the full potential of machine translation for enterprise. And we see that sometimes, actually quite a bit of number of times, machine translation delivers the wrong translation, despite being trained on domain-specific data sets, as you may see here. And we have realized that many of those issues emerge when the text is formatted, meaning it contains inline tags. Next slide, please. And there are several reasons for those issues. First, different MT providers use different approaches to work with inline tags, resulting in very inconsistent and unpredictable behavior across languages. Then, in some cases, we see that custom models start to use baseline translations in the presence of the tags, which is actually the reason of the issue you've seen on the previous slide. Also, some of the tags are placeholders, and machine translation doesn't know anything about them and how to deal with them. So considering that most of the tags we deal with in localization contain inline tags, it creates quite a huge problem. When machine translation engines that work great on plain text significantly under-deliver on formatted texts, leading to failed expectations and slowing MT adoption. Next slide, please. So since at Intent20 Hub, we work with about 16,000 language pairs and 40 different MT engines, we needed some MT agnostic way to deal with these tags. And we came up with a simple idea to remove tags from the text, translate it as a plain text, getting the best possible quality, and then put tags back when they should be. So how we do that? Let's consider this fragment of video subtitles. First of all, we remove inline tags except placeholders and remember where they were in the original sentence. Then we expand placeholders with plausible words. And we can do it automatically thanks to a new type of AI generative model such as GPT-3. Next one. After that, we translate the plain text. And now we need to put the tags back. So next one. To do that, we use several universal multilingual embedding models to perform the word alignment. Next one. And it gives us information of where to insert tags in the target segment based on where they were in the source. And we're currently piloting this approach with one customer for specifically subtitle translation. Their own MT engines works well on plain text, but subtitle translations are very subpar. And after running translations using this technique, they couldn't believe it's the same MT engines they used. Once it's in production, we're going to enable it in all Intento plugins to translation management systems so that enterprises finally can experience the fullest machine translation, even for formatted texts. Thanks. That's it.
Konstantin, wow, I almost did the mute thing again. Yeah, 2 gremlins. Really interesting, the power of tags you brought. We learned a lot more about tagging, hopefully, there, and how we should use the word delivery, right? Well done. Dragons, what questions do we have for Konstantin?
I really appreciate that solution because I know that problem and it's a nasty one. So I think it's a great solution, but I understand that this solution is part of the Intento platform, correct?
Yes.
Would you consider this, or will it be maybe productized as a standalone service so that people can use it from their whatever platform they have so that they just can fix this tagging problem?
Yes, I mean, essentially our product is this standalone solution, meaning that it's a middleware, meaning that you run your translation traffic through our platform and you get those added features, improvements like correct tag handling, tone of voice control, profanity filtering, custom terminology on the engine, which does not support custom terminology, and so on. So, I mean, yes and yes.
I understand.
That's exactly what we built it for.
If I just want to use that piece and I'm not interested in the rest, is there a business model, or do you offer a service where I can say, I just want to have this tagging fixed, and how much would it be then if I run content through it just to get that part done?
Yeah, you know, we have several sort of tiers, which are value-based tiers, meaning that if you just brokering requests between different engines and you don't need any sort of sophisticated things, it's really cheap. And if you need type of advanced functionality where for every request we involve some of the neural networks on our side, it's more expensive tier. But essentially that's what we build it for. It's very connected. It works with any TMS, any enterprise software, any MT engine, any language service provider. It's built exactly for what you're describing, to fix this problem wherever this problem is.
Cool, thanks.
So you translate the tag, replace the tag with the actual word, and then you replace back with the tag after, right? Is there any possibility of mistranslation during the machine translation phase in between?
Well, yeah, as usual, yes.
What happens in that case?
But it's important that we do not replace the specific word. I think you mean placeholders, right? Where we do not just insert tag, we replace a word. So we do not replace specific word. And suppose we don't know what this word is because we don't know how it will be translated, right? But we identify where this word is positioned. So we replace whatever word is there. Maybe mistranslation. So the only thing which may totally break if machine translation went really weird and there is significant omission. That, for example, the part of the sentence dropped completely, but then I would say if machine first, that's why we do NT curation to avoid using engines which show such disastrous translations. And second, in this case, tag problem is the list of the problems you have. Half of your sentence was omitted. So if it's more or less right, regardless of is it New York, even if New York will be translated as Moscow, which happens sometimes, it happened at statistical MT engines a lot, it will be replaced correctly back with a placeholder. So
okay,
no worries.
Great, thank you.
That was very close to my question, so thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Dragons. It sounds like someone's challenging you, Konstantin, to create an additional type of product. We always like to hear that. You can think on that in your quiet time, of course. And many thanks again for joining the PIC. Great to see you here.
Thanks.
Thanks, Konstantin.
Hey, so for anyone who's just joined us, you're at the Process Innovation Challenge. We've just seen 3 innovators, show their wares. We had Mayu, Rickert, and just now Konstantin. And next up is Anouk, another previous entrant, and she's going to talk about some shrunken pieces. Anouk, tell us more.
Hi. So my name's Anouk. I'm a translation process consultant, and here's my story. Once upon a time, there was a company that created e-learning content, and one day they had to deliver their content in 8 languages. So they created their source content, made sure everything was perfect, hired a translation company, sent it all out, and hoped for the best. And like these things go with big translation projects, everything that could go wrong went wrong at the last moment. So there were exhausted project managers on all sides, missed deadlines, many technical defects, very angry client, and actually a big penalty. So they needed help and called on us. And we implemented a radical change. Instead of running a translation project, we created a short cycle translation process and were able to eliminate old project management. So how do you do this? Your first step is to let go of what is traditionally thought of as efficient. You unbatch, you shrink the pieces. Now let me use an analogy to explain why. If you try to roll a big boulder up a mountain, this takes enormous effort, and chances are it will drop right before the top. Now chopping up your boulder and using a wheelbarrow, you will have to walk up the mountain multiple times, but you know you're going to get there. And every time you walk up that mountain, you start seeing how to make it more efficient. The same goes for translation projects. Running a translation project in one big batch will give you little control, no insight, and usually poor results. Working with smaller pieces allows you to optimize every cycle, and this will lead to an extremely scalable process. Now, in the example of my e-learning client, we went from translating an entire course in one batch to iteratively translating and publishing lessons. We made our pieces both publishable and comprehensible for the translator by creating small, meaningful packages. They consisted of all the different pieces of content that belonged to one lesson. Then we visualized the process in a Kanban board so we could see how things were going. And because of the shrinking of the pieces and the visualization, we could easily see where problems arose while there were still small problems. We implemented a structural solution, continued with the next cycle, and detected the next bottleneck. And eventually we ended up with that super fast and conveyor belt. So here's what happens if you do this. First, by unbatching and optimizing, you create so much flow that you can publish your entire content twice as fast. And the first piece can be published only a few days after the start of the project. The process becomes simple and comprehensive for all parties involved, eliminating the need for project management. This can save around 80% of both internal and external costs. Now, translators receive comprehensible, manageable packages and instant feedback on their work. Because of this, the number of defects decreases by 10%, and all of them are solved while running the process instead of after the deadline. The same goes for technical defects. Employees have a steady workflow and no additional work right before the deadline. No overtime, a successful outcome, and therefore 100% happiness. So if you want to run a large translation project, start with defining your MVP, your minimal viable publication, and publish it as soon as it is ready. And this way, you transform a project into an iterative process that is understandable for all involved, eliminating the need for project managers. That was my story. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Anouk. You heard it here, folks. Unbatching just became a thing, which I have to admit I like a lot more than deep cleaning. Questions, dragons?
So you said because you use this process, you can get rid of project management. I think I heard that you don't need a project management. Is it true?
Yeah, so you basically what you do is you move from project management to process management. Mm-hmm. And process managers are looking at a process instead of trying to make a deadline. So what you do is a process manager is optimizing the process instead of telling people what to do. And I think a project manager, one thing you don't need if you try to do this is a very good project manager. Those are really gonna, they're gonna ruin everything, because you need people that don't actually just solve problems ad hoc, but they look at the structural solution so that the next time it doesn't happen again, which is a very different mindset to trying to make a deadline tomorrow.
And do you use automation for this?
Yeah, of course. Well, okay. Like there's a difference between project managers and file handlers, right? Like a project manager telling people what to do when, that you can easily solve that in a Trello board without any automation. If you make your process really simple and everybody knows what he has to do, then you don't need somebody like giving out orders, right? Now, and then there's another thing which we call, in translation, we often call project management, which is basically moving files back and forth between people. That's not really project management, that's file handling or being an operator. Of course, that part you automate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anouk, I have a question. In software development, this is a known approach to split a bigger problem into smaller problems so that they become manageable. And in software development, there are also certain techniques to define that size, because unbatching, of course, makes sense, but in efficiency books, you often read that you should batch tasks so that the setup times are smaller. So where do you find the balance between setup times and unbatching? What is the right size of these batches?
Thank you so much for this question. I really wanted this one. So the funny thing is, so of course it's less efficient, right? Because that's just what it is, but it's less efficient in your current process. So what you do, so of course, you cannot go to the smallest possible thing right away, because you're just gonna, that's just gonna not happen. But what you do is you have the intention of moving towards the smallest piece. And what you do is that you then start looking at your process in a completely different way. So what it does is so you never say, oh, we can batch this and make it more efficient, but you say, how do we make sure it isn't a bottleneck if we do run it through the process one by one? And in general, this methodology, already creates extremely scalable processes. But in translation, there's something else going on, because it also creates a process that makes you able to handle smaller pieces and therefore changes to the source content. And that it makes this so great for translation. Because a lot of the times people just do a project and then they're like, oh, I made a great website, oh, I have a change. So what do I do? Because you just cannot use that same process for both a big batch as this for this, because it would take way too long. So this makes this approach, which is like a great methodology in general, especially good for translation projects.
Good point. Thank you.
Again, I think that was very close to my question, so thank you.
Thanks very much, Dragons. Jim, I think we'll give you all the questions in the last innovation, by the sounds of it. So, Anouk, thank you very, very much. Super interesting
you all.
stuff. Good to see the shrinking is still going on. Thank you. So, and finally, Rafal, we were going to ask you to join the stage. And you're going to aim to conjure up some magic, right? Welcome,
Obviously,
Rafal.
yes, this is my magical wand, and I am going to show you a magic trick. So, hello everyone, my name is Rafał Jaworski, and I'm going to show you how to do real magic when you don't have language resources. Let's go to the next slide. Let's first imagine the situation. We are a language service provider, and a client approaches us and says, well, I have thousands of pages of, let's say, medical texts in the English language, and I need them translated. So we are very excited. Obviously, a lot of translation text means a lot of money. We just ask the question, so what is the target language? And the client shyly says that, well, you know, the recipient of the translation is in the country where is the Karisimba volcano, where is the city of Kigali, and it's Rwanda, and the language is Kinyarwanda. Let's go to the next slide. Well, it's not a problem, it's really a challenge, right? So say we can find translators who are proficient in Kinyarwanda. Next. But can we give them the language resources they might need during their translation? I'm talking about a dictionary of English Kinyarwanda terms, medical terms also. I'm talking about the translation memory maybe of those two languages. We don't have them, but we do have a huge pile of texts coming from the internet. And my magic trick will involve these texts. The magic lies in mathematics. I believe in mathematics. I'm a mathematician also. So what we do is we take English texts, I mean a pile of medical text that we can obtain from the internet. We train it into the vector space, words to vec technology, right? In which mathematics converts all the words to numbers. Here, the numbers are represented by dots, and all the dots form a sort of irregular shape that we call the vector space. Same goes for the Kinyarwanda texts. They also undergo the same process, and the words, the Kinyarwandan words, form some other vector space. Let's go next. However, the vector spaces are different because they were trained by different texts. But there comes the mathematics again. Let's click next once, yes. And mathematics let us convert those vector spaces. Actually, this is the one that Konstantin mentioned. This is the multilingual word to vex kind of thing. And after that, we have the English words and their Kinyarwandan counterparts lying close to each other, mathematically speaking. Let's go next. And that gives us a raw English Kinyarwanda dictionary in which each entry is assigned a probability score. And that's the key of our interlanguage vector space, a technology that we have in XTM Cloud, in XTM International. Let's go next. And what do we do with the newly conjured up dictionary? Well, we have one more piece of magic because we still have the text, we still have the English and Kinyarwandan text, we have the raw dictionary, and we have another piece of magic, which is the XTM AI aligner, that we call it, which is able to figure out the correspondence of whole sentences. And we can arrive at an actual translation memory. Let's go next. What we have? Out of nothing, out of almost thin air, we have 36,000 entries of a dictionary and over 7,000 translation memory units in our Kinyarwandan experiment. Let's go next. Does it sound incredible? Maybe, but it is actually happening. So that's my magic trick. Out of really nothing, poof, you have the language resources. If you want to know more, be sure to visit our XTM International booth at LocWorld. Thank you.
Rafał, I want to ask you, because you talked about this process requires basically getting a pile of content in the target language. But we're talking about an application that solves an issue with low resource languages. So from a practical standpoint, how does one go about procuring reliable, specialized digital source content in a low resource language? For example, authoritative medical material in Swahili.
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, this is the part that involves most of the human work, and this is the individual, the specialist that can carry out this specific task can be a computational linguist, but it can also be a computer scientist or a linguist trained a little bit with the ability of web scraping of content. I'm actually also an academic lecturer, and I do teach this as part of my one of my academic courses, and I've managed to successfully train both computational linguists and regular linguists in that specific task. So that involves a few working days of such specialists.
So maybe follow-up question there. If someone is to use this feature, the aligner feature, would they need to have a computer scientist on their staff to do this?
No, actually, the aligner part is fully automatic, and it's offered to all the XTM cloud clients.
Okay, so you would need to have a computer scientist on staff to apply this process if you were not to be using a specialized software like the aligner in XTM.
Yes, possibly. If you want to recreate the whole process, yes, that's a requirement. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I can follow up that to invent this, like the marriage between machine translation preparation make it available for linguists to translate in CAT tool. If I understand correctly, was it a requirement from a client, or it was XTM's initiative?
It was partly both, because the client just had a large project, and they were looking for a solution to make the project run. They needed a translation memory to speed things up, and we came up with a solution to provide those language resources for a specific project at first, and then, well, it seems like a logical framework to offer to our clients.
So there's market.
Yes, I believe it is. Yes, and the key here is that we don't actually deal with machine translation. We provide the standard language resources as translation memory and as specialist dictionary, because the translation, automatic translation, well, for less resourced languages, even if it is available, it's a very poor quality. We actually believe in translation memory predominantly as a key technique to enhance the translation process.
Okay.
Rafa, this is a great way to produce linguistic resources if you only have monolingual content. Have you benchmarked that approach with tools where you do have already resources? Like, for example, if you have Swahili, then Google Translate already does it. Have you benchmarked then your approach versus, let's say, maybe a not so optimal general purpose machine translation tool?
Yeah, well, as for now, we don't have the precise data, but some experiments are underway right now in which we test the exact performance gains. But what we have for now is a very positive feedback with the language resources as such. When the users started using them, they felt that they are really helping, right? The dictionary does contain the terms which are valuable, and the translation memory does provide some suggestions, some fuzzy matches.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dragons. Thanks very much, Raphael. A bit of conjuring there at the end. We always like to see a bit of magic at the PIC. And if you joined us a little bit late, that's fine. You can still vote. No problem at all there. Who did we hear from? Well, we heard from Mayu, who spoke to us about the iterative. And if you didn't hear iterative many times and it doesn't go around in your head, then you know, you need to have a look at the recording again, because she spoke about iterative localization and impact localization. Rickert spoke to us about an overall QA and marketing system and how that can be automated and made better. Very interesting technology there. Constantine spoke about tagging. So anyone who knows about those little tags that can appear in strings that sometimes can cause issues, whether it's in translation memories or in MT, as Constantine was showing us, very innovative ideas and solutions there. Anouk spoke to us about unbatching. That's not deplaning, it's when you make things smaller and modularized and super processed stuff. And then we just heard from Rafael, who was talking to us about, well, if you don't have anything, we can do some magic, right? So that was it. You've met all our innovators and their innovations. What now, Alex?
Yeah, so it's time to find a winner. And this is kind of the cool part where we actually ask attendees like you to help us. And I've, excuse me, I've placed the link to the voting in the chat window there. Dave also has the cool QR code up here. So the way that we'll do our scoring is that we weight our Dragons votes as 50% and we weight the audience as the other 50%. So the Dragons will select their top 3, we'll score and weight those based on that, and then give an equal weight versus the audience vote as well. So this is where you come in. Also wanted to mention that the recording of this session will be up within the next hour and available on demand. Our voting will be open until noon tomorrow. So if you missed Mayu, for instance, please go back and watch her pitch before you go and vote. Also encourage any of your colleagues that are at the conference that may have missed to watch, and you'll have until noon Central European time tomorrow to cast your vote. So very excited, Dave, and we're almost to a winner. I can't wait to figure it out tomorrow with you.
Yeah, me too. It's always the fun part where we see how things shake out. You know, as we enter our 5th year of the PIC, we take a quick look down memory lane. You can still spot the URL here, so just in case you're typing furiously, look at the chat window as well. It's probably easier to copy and paste. You know, the first PIC, and we had video localized take on Microsoft. For anyone who was there, it was a lot of fun. Barcelona, of course, and then in the US, we had Moravia take on Supertext, another fun event. Ola Persson, Gary Leffman, and Rickert, who might be familiar because he just pitched.
Yes, yes.
Ago. There he is. Won with Sarah Pokorna and Patricia Palladini Adele, runners-up in the 2 PIC events in 2018. And then 2019, well, we're in Portugal with Julia, who I see is actually here today. Hi, Julia.
Hi there.
There she is. Another alumni and innovator, one with a breakthrough process innovation, and Laurie Silverstein and Heather Shoemaker battled it out in San Jose in the US. So just a little trip down memory lane, concluded by Wouter Magdenburg won with some audio dubbing automation, if I could even say it. Maybe you should dub my audio, which was really good. And then, of course, we had Anne-Sophie Delafos last January in our last installment. Again, big shout out to all of our innovators over the past 10 versions, to our audience who tend to be turning up time and time again. Thank you. And, you know, check out our website, YouTube channel to see previous innovators. If you're interested, you'll see them there. We have most of the recordings, at least for the last couple of PICs. So Alex, voting is open until when?
Voting's open till noon tomorrow. And I'd just like to also take this opportunity on behalf of Donna Parrish and Ulrich Hennis, the founders of Loquworld, to congratulate all of our innovators who participated in the prelims and those who made it to today's final round. And most importantly, I'd really like to thank our 3 dragons. First of all, Yuka Nakasone has been our most tireless advocate. She has been with us from the beginning. She is on the advisory board. She does everything and helps find all of the innovators. Thanks so much, Yuka. New dragons, Jochen Hummel and Jim Compton, just thought you brought such a great presence and great questions for our innovators this time. So thank you very much to everyone for participating. Great.
Well, thank you, Alex. I think we're nearly done. When are we going to?
Dave. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's back and forth it across the net. Virtual pat in the back, everybody. When are we going to find out the results?
So Dave and I will meet after the voting closes tomorrow. We'll record a short winners announcement, and Ulrich and Donna will actually announce our winners in the closing session at tomorrow's Loquworld, and Dave and I's winners announcement will be published at the same time. And you can bet that the PIC website will have that information as well. So stay with us and find out who's the winner.
That's it. That's us. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. Looking forward to seeing what happens next 24 hours or so. That's PIC number 10. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.